Welcome to Engedrian. If this is your first time listening, or even if you are returning, be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for additional content, battle maps, and background details. We hope you are enjoying our adventure. Let's see what happens next. The party begins the journey back to the previous tunnel bifurcation, which is about an hour's journey. Their intentions are to follow the ancient tunnel to the Hall of Narvandor. They are moving at a slow, cautious pace, fearing the explosion may attract attention. After about half an hour, they pause, do a group check, drink some water, and begin moving again. The party make a stealth check. Roll 24, 8, 12, 21, 9, 8, and 17. Fodinus, Malaysia, and Peace have no issues with the rough terrain and remain quiet moving through the tunnel. The tunnel floor still proves a bit of a challenge for Inicel, Case, Umgern, and Theophania, who catch their feet in the ruts and slip on loose stones, their weapons clanging and dinging off the stones and armor. The party make perception checks. Roll 14, 24, 13, 20, 13, 21, and 6. Peace is distracted by their colleagues slipping and tripping, watching to see if they can help them. Fodinus lends a hand here and there to Case and Umgern, trying to reduce their struggle with moving through the tunnel. Despite struggling with the tunnel's rough terrain, Inicel and Theophania hear a distinctly odd clicking sound that they've not heard before and pause. Malaysia moves into the light of their lanterns and points up. Malaysia points a finger at Umgern. Malaysia casts message.
There's something above us.
Umgern hears the message in his head. He grabs Case and Fodinus' arms and looks up. Peace notices the party all suddenly looking up and turns their attention up as well. Where the tunnel was cut by the cone of the device in consistent strokes, a 15-foot diameter hole appears. Whether the hole was there before when they passed, no one is sure because they were concentrating on the ground and the tunnel ahead. As everyone stares up, the clicking grows louder and two large forms drop from the ceiling. Everyone rolls for initiative. Peace spends one key point to make 3 unarmed attack with Cat's Claws and Fury of Blows, targeting Hook Horror B. Rolls 19, 21, 19, then 19 slashing damage. The large creatures fall between the party, separating them. Peace is immediately face to face with one of the beasts and makes 3 aggressive key-enhanced slashes with their claws, cutting deep into its chest and causing it to howl. Umgern casts Searing Smite, then makes a scimitar attack at Hook Horror B. Rolls 15 versus AC 15 for a hit for 8 slashing damage and 5 fire damage. The creature facing Peace has its back to Umgern, who murmurs a few words, causing his scimitar to ignite with fire. He makes a slashing attack across the creature's back for a solid strike, which ignites it in flame. Case activates the Dancing Longsword and attacks Hook Horror B. Then attacks Hook Horror B with Spear. Rolls 10 for a miss. Rolls 20 for a hit for 11 piercing damage. Case tosses his longsword into the air, and it floats swiftly over to pause between the two creatures, and then slashes at one between Peace and Umgern, which bounces off the creature's chitinous arm. Case stabs at the beast with his spear, piercing it in the back. Hook Horror B rolls a con saving throw, Searing Smite. Attacks Peace with 2 hook attacks. Rolls an 18 con saving throw. Saves. Rolls 11 versus AC 18 for a miss, and 19 versus AC 18 for a hit for 14 piercing damage. The damaged and flaming insectoid beast facing Peace shakes its heads and swings its arms, extinguishing the flames from Umgern's strike. It then swings its massive hooked arms towards Peace, one deflected by their spear, but the second sinking deep into their thigh. Theophania casts Hunter's Mark on Hook Horror A, makes 2 short sword attacks, rolls 9 and 11 for misses. Theophania murmurs a few words, and a red ring appears over the head of the uninjured beast, who Theophania charges and makes 2 short sword attacks, both of which bounce off the creature's hooks. Fodinus moves into melee with Hook Horror A, attacks with 2 short sword attacks, surprise attack, sneak attack, assassinate. Rolls 17 versus AC 15 for critical hit for 41 piercing damage and 18 for 6 piercing damage. Fodinus seizes on the second creature's lack of action and rushes to attack it with 2 short sword slashes, the first of which hacks deep into the creature's back, striking its spine. The second swing makes a lighter cut in the opposite direction. Inicel casts Healing Word on Peace, attacks Hook Horror A with Scimitar, rolls 5 hit points for Peace, rolls 24 versus AC 15 for a hit for 10 slashing damage. Inicel sees the vicious attack on Peace and casts a healing spell on them. She then strikes the creature in front of her with her scimitar, slashing it across the belly. Malaysia casts Catapult, then moves into melee with Hook Horror A. Hook Horror A rolls 15 Dex saving throw versus DC 14. Saving. Malaysia points at a large stone on the ground, and it hurls towards the beast, who raises up its hooks, allowing the stone to pass by without striking it. It slams into the opposite wall. Malaysia runs into melee with it and prepares to attack. Hook Horror A attacks Inicel with 2 hook attacks, rolls 13 versus AC 19 for a miss, and rolls 19 versus AC 19 for a hit for 11 piercing damage. The insectoid creature, enraged by the slash from Inicel's scimitar, brings its hooks down from where it avoided Malaysia's catapult, striking Inicel's shield and her arm deeply. Peace spends 1 key point to make 3 unarmed attack, Cat's Claws, Fury of Blows, at Hook Horror B, rolls 19, 8, and 13 versus AC 15 for 1 hit for 9 slashing damage. Peace, still face to face with the injured beast, makes 3 more aggressive, key-enhanced slashes with their claws, cutting deep into its chest again with the first, but aching from the last hook attack, misses with the latter 2. Ungern casts Searing Smite, attacks Hook Horror B with Scimitar, rolls 24 versus AC 15 for a hit for 6 slashing damage and 4 fire damage. The flames from his last strike gone, Umgurn reignites his blade with another murmur and brings the scimitar blade down on the creature's back, again igniting it. Case attacks Hook Horror B with Dancing Longsword and then attacks Hook Horror B with Spear. Rolls 7 for a miss and 21 for a hit for 10 piercing damage. Case commands his longsword, dancing between the 2 creatures, to slash again at the one closest to him, but the creature spins toward it and deflects it with its beak. Case lunges with his spear with 2 hands, driving it into the beast's now visible chest. Hook Horror B makes a con saving throw, Searing Smite, then turns to Case and makes 2 hook attacks. Rolls 18 con saving throw, saves, rolls 20 and 24 for 21 piercing damage. The creature responds to the chest stab from Case by swiping with both hooks at Case, which catch him in his ribs on each side very deeply. Theophania attacks Hook Horror A, Hunter's Mark, with 2 short sword attacks, rolls 10 and 24 versus AC 15 for 1 hit for 7 piercing damage. Theophania strikes again at her marked target with 2 cuts of her short swords, landing one deeply in its chest. Fodinus attacks Hook Horror A with short sword, sneak attack, attacks Hook Horror B with short sword, rolls 24 versus AC 15 for a hit for 16 piercing damage, rolls 11 versus AC 15 for a miss. Still flanking the beast, Fodinus swings his short sword at its neck, slicing halfway through it. It falls to the tunnel floor. He pivots a few paces and brings his second short sword attack down on the other creature's arm, but it deflects the blade. Inicel casts Produce Flame, attacks Hook Horror B, moves into melee with it, rolls 20 versus AC 15 for 5 fire damage. With the beast in front of her now down, Inicel produces a ball of flame in her hand and hurls it at the other beast, striking it in the face. She then runs over to be in melee with the creature. Malaysia casts Firebolt at Hook Horror B, moves into melee with it, rolls 7 versus AC 15 for a miss. Malaysia launches a firebolt at the remaining creature, which bounces off its arm and explodes harmlessly in the air. He rushes over to be in melee with the beast. Peace makes a 2-handed spear attack against Hook Horror B, rolls 23 versus AC 15 for 10 piercing damage. Peace grabs their spear firmly in both hands and charges the creature, impaling it through the neck and driving the spear out of the top of its skull. Each party member receives 250 experience points. Umgurn uses Lay on Hands for 15 hit points for Case. Case drinks a potion of healing for 10 hit points of healing. Inicel drinks a potion of healing for 9 hit points of healing. Peace drinks a potion of healing for 11 hit points of healing. Umgurn quickly moves to Case after the battle ends and places his hands on the 2 large wounds in his sides, healing him. Case pulls out a potion of healing and drinks it, bringing him to full health. Inicel drinks a potion of healing, almost to full health. She gives Peace a potion as well, healing them to full health. Inicel makes a nature check, assisted by Theophania. Advantage. Rolls 10.
Theophania, the shell of these creatures, which I believe are hook horrors, is highly valued by armorers. I believe we can easily remove them. However, the hooks appear to be destroyed beyond value from our repeated blows.
Theophania nods, and the two begin carefully removing the shells. The stink of the dead creatures is hideous. Umgurn watches and nods. Malaysia still stares up at the hole from which the beast dropped, confused by the limit of his dark vision to see much. Malaysia grabs Case's arm and tugs.
Case, I cannot see anything in that hole. No details. Can you? Can you guys throw me up in that hole? I want to check it out.
Case looks at Malaysia with concern and shakes his head.
We don't know what's up there.
He looks displeased at Malaysia's ill-advised courage. Malaysia, saying nothing, moves directly under the hole and begins tossing small balls of flame into the air, well into the hole. He does it so quickly that he manages to keep a ball of flame roughly in the space as one rises and another falls. The space becomes illuminated, and as was evident by their dark vision, the space seems just to be a small cavity, no more than 10 feet high from the opening of the hole. Malaysia stops the flames and looks back at Case.
The four of you, Peace, Umgurn, Case, and Fadinus, can make a basket with your hands and toss me up. I'll take a quick look and jump back down. I am concerned this could be another tunnel. We may need to collapse it.
He looks demandingly at the party. Malaysia makes a persuasion check versus the party's insight check. Rolls a 4 versus 12.
I'm afraid it's just too dangerous, Malaysia.
Umgurn folds his arms across his chest. Theophania frowns and steps forward.
Umgurn, what if I boost Malaysia up just as high as I can so he can take a look?
Umgurn looks at Theophania's long body and legs and estimates that it would be at least 15 feet high. He nods.
Yes, I think if you can simply raise him to the level of a hole and let him look in, he should be able to see and assess the space.
Malaysia smiles and quickly climbs onto Theophania's back. She places her hands on her shoulders, and he steps into them, carefully balancing, assisted by Inicel, who has her quarterstaff held up as a point for balance. When Malaysia is set, Theophania rises up on her back legs as high as she can and pushes Malaysia into the air. Theophania makes an athletics check. Malaysia makes an acrobatics check and a perception check. They roll 17, 7, and 16. Theophania's powerful push sends Malaysia almost a full head into the hole, and he can quickly see that the hole opens into a medium-sized cave with smooth walls and a small hole leading out of its southern wall. There is what appears to be a collection of sticks and rags piled in one corner, and the shiny surface of what could be an egg. As Malaysia attempts to spin his head and body enough to see everything, however, he loses his balance and begins falling forward. Malaysia makes a dexterity saving throw. Rolls 4. Though his hands are outstretched, he fails to grab the side of the hole and begins to fall forward out of Theophania's hands. Fodinus, Umgurn, Peace, and Case make a group dexterity check. Roll 15. Fodinus, Umgurn, Peace, and Case, who anticipated something bad might happen with this idea, quickly form a basket with their arms, and Malaysia lands in the middle, unharmed. Unfazed by his near catastrophe, Malaysia hops down and smiles, still looking up.
Okay, it's a cave with a small tunnel exit, but there is also a nest, and there were eggs. We have to check it out.
Malaysia makes a persuasion check versus party's insight check. Rolls an 8 versus 16.
No, I think that's been quite enough adventure for you today.
Theophania, now back down to the ground, has a look of concern on her face, as if the last stunt was dangerous enough and partly her own fault.
Eggs?
Inicel pipes up and looks up at the hole.
Umgurn, you know these creatures best. What will happen to the eggs if the parents are dead?
Inicel looks at the corpses and sighs deeply.
They will likely not hatch and probably die, or some other predator will eat them.
He looks sternly at the hole, but seems unconvinced that his opinion is the best outcome, and is certainly not the outcome the party wants. Malaysia smiles and begins pulling his rope from his bag. Case and Fodinus drop their heads, realizing Umgurn's good-hearted nature and Inicel's concern for all creatures have convinced them to check out the cave. A few minutes later, Malaysia has a rope tied around his waist, which Theophania holds loosely in her hands. Inicel finishes securing the hook horror shells to Theophania's back, making her look like a very large snell. Fodinus, Umgurn, Case, and Peace have remade the basket and are squatting on their knees. Malaysia climbs in. Fodinus, Umgurn, Peace, and Case make a group strength check. Malaysia makes an acrobatics check. Roll 4, natural 1, and 20. The four of them with their interwoven arms bolt up quickly and force their arms up, but their timing is off and Malaysia goes flying off to the side of the tunnel. Theophania snatches the rope and Malaysia performs a mid-air backflip and lands on her back safely.
Let's try again, okay?
Fodinus, Umgurn, Peace, and Case make a group strength check. Malaysia makes an acrobatics check. Roll 18 and 19. The four repeat their upward bolt and arm lift, this time with almost perfect timing, and send Malaysia through the hole very near the edge of it. When he reaches the apex of his ascent, he leans forward and catches the edge of the hole with his upper body and then pulls himself up. He surveys the cavern again and can clearly see stalactites and stalagmites scattered all around. Malaysia makes a dexterity check with advantage, rolls 19. He ties the rope to one of them tightly and ties the loose end to another for security. As he further searches, he can hear several others climbing to join. Malaysia makes an investigation check and a perception check, rolls a 22 and an 11. Malaysia sees now that there is a large nest here made of sticks, bones, cloth, moss, mud, and other material, most of which would not be found in this cave, which appears to be a natural formation. Within the nest itself there are bones within rusted chainmail and rusted splint armor, along with a rotted leather bag. In the middle of the nest are 3 shiny black eggs the size of a giant ground fruit. Inside the bag and scattered among the bodies and debris, he finds 173 copper pieces, 1,300 silver pieces, 52 gold pieces, 1 star rose quartz, 1 zircon, 1 bloodstone, and 1 chalcedony. A few weapons, all of which are broken or shattered, are littered throughout the debris. Inisel and Umgurn have joined him and look at the bodies as well. Inisel, Umgurn, and Malaysia make medicine checks. Roll 16, 4, and 16. Umgurn seems disgusted by the nest and stands to look elsewhere. Inisel begins removing the bones and placing them to the side very carefully. Malaysia joins her in this activity. After a few moments, they have reconstructed at least 5 humanoids, ranging from very old to killed within the last week. Inisel is confident that 2 of them are drow, 1 is a goblin, and the other 2 are possibly human. Inisel makes a nature check, rolls 18.
The ground of this cave is solid stone. I cannot give them a proper burial here.
Not to worry, Inisel. We need to collapse this cave anyway to seal off the tunnel.
Malaysia begins pulling sticks of dynamite from his bag. Umgurn surveys the entire perimeter of the cave and looks out of the small exit, which is barely big enough for a humanoid to fit through. Umgurn makes an intelligence check, rolls 3. He scratches his head and looks back at the nest and back to the hole. Something is odd, but he can't piece it together. He looks out of the exit and sees that it is a small tunnel leading north and upward slightly. He returns to Malaysia and Inisel. Inisel has placed cave moss, underdark mushrooms, and shiny stones on each of the assembled bodies and covered them with loose debris from the nest. The hook horror eggs are no longer in the nest. Umgurn makes a perception check, rolls 10. Umgurn looks for Malaysia, who appears and smiles.
I have 1 stick in the entrance over there. That will collapse it. I will have 3 sticks in the ceiling here. That should collapse the rest of it. We will have to ignite the entryway from here, and then I can ignite the other from below.
Malaysia moves toward the main hole in the floor.
Is that safe?
Inisel looks up from the corpses now in repose.
Of course.
Malaysia makes a deception check versus Inisel and Umgurn's insight check. Rolls a 16 versus 18.
Malaysia, I don't think it's safe, and you know it.
Umgurn shakes his head. Inisel frowns.
Okay. It is risky, but this is the safest way to do it, okay?
Malaysia motions for them to exit down the rope. Umgurn and Inisel quickly rappel down the rope to the bottom. Malaysia moves to the edge of the hole with the rope in one hand and his feet against the edge, his whole body leaning over the hole. He throws a ball of flame at the entrance. Malaysia makes a ranged attack, rolls 16. The ball of flame lands very close to the fuse on some of the dry sticks and moss that Malaysia took from the nest. The little pyre ignites, and within a second, the fuse bursts into sparks. He immediately rappels down the rope and lands on the ground. As quickly as he can, he begins throwing additional balls of flame over the lip of the hole into the nest where the rest of his fuses run. Malaysia makes a ranged attack, rolls 19. The little balls of flame vanish out of sight, and after a few seconds the cave illuminates.
Okay, run! This way, now!
The party looks at Malaysia with horror and begins sprinting out of the tunnel, away from the device and following Malaysia. After a few seconds, a first loud bang is heard overhead, followed by a second closer bang and a burst of bright fiery light from the ceiling hole. A slow rumble starts and stones and rocks begin to fall through the hole. After moments, the entire tunnel ceiling gives way and collapses into a solid pile of stones. As the dust clears, the party sees that the explosion has collapsed about 20 feet of the tunnel, centered on the hole, and no more upper exits are visible.
We need to have a serious conversation about your communication skills, Malaysia.
Fodinus dusts dirt and debris from his clothes and stares rather angrily. Malaysia smiles and looks at the rest of the party, who all have Fodinus' same look. Malaysia frowns and joins the group as they walk further along the tunnel. After another half hour, they find themselves at the bifurcation which leads, per Case and Umgurn's estimation, to the Hall of Narvandor. Malaysia removes the dynamite he placed previously and travels back down the tunnel towards the device for 100 feet and places the charges there. He moves back to the group and launches firebolts until the fuse ignites. After a few seconds, a loud explosion shatters the silence and the tunnel collapses for 50 feet on either side of the blast. Umgurn sighs and smiles.
All right, let's make our way to Narvandor.
Ustan zonth not telinth G.
A sleek, sly voice emanates from the darkness. Umgurn turns towards the tunnel to the Hall of Narvandor and sees 3 drow standing silently on the path, each holding a short sword raised in one hand and having a hand crossbow pointed in the party's direction. Inicel makes a stealth check versus group perception check, wild shapes into a spider, moves 15 feet behind drow, rolls 22 versus group's perception of 17. Hidden by the edge of the tunnel, which the party has not yet passed out of, and into the main tunnel, Inicel vanishes out of sight, shrinking quickly to a small spider and vanishing over some rocks. No one notices.
Vendui Dalharan Daldrafe Udos Gela Woon Breasanpil Udos Lak Seal Woon Liath.
Umgurn speaks in Undercommon to the drow, which none of the rest of the party can follow. Malaysia moves slightly, and Fodinus puts a hand to his shoulder tightly.
Ele zalal udos oregato dos calaral vlolos ogo elend.
The drow who speaks steps forward a few steps to within a few feet of Umgurn. Case and Peace flex their claws while holding their spears, glinting in the light of Theophania's lantern.
Lustazan zalal not Jeviam Indolin Labias Mindlaxwi Wing Laliath Naltunis del Navanda Cosnend.
Umgurn steps forward as well, now so close to the drow that the handbow is over his left shoulder and the short sword is at his neck. Theophania, who was taking up the rear of the party, looks nervously at the group and notices that Inicel is missing. She looks quickly around without moving her head. Inicel moves to an alcove in the tunnel 20 feet from the party, dismisses Wild Shape, casts Moonbeam, centered on the 3 drow. Drow make con saving throws of 9, 19, and 17 versus DC 14, 1 fail and 2 saves, rolls 14 damage, 7 on a save. A bright beam of moonlight splits the darkness and shrouds the 3 drow in phosphorescent light. The leader, standing closest to Umgurn, collapses instantly to the floor, and the other 2 attempt to step back out of the light, but suffer nonetheless. Umgurn moves around the moonbeam and makes 2 scimitar attacks. Rolls 17 and 16, both hit for 12 slashing damage. Umgurn, without a sound, moves around the beam of light and slashes one of the drow in the belly with his scimitar, then brings the back end up into its chest. The drow falls flat into the beam of moonlight. The remaining drow drops his short sword and falls to its knees with its hands raised.
Dos orn squarlan Udosa Ulula Tolas Davanda Udos or not Jivim dos.
Umgurn removes the drow's hand crossbow and searches it quickly for other weapons, removing a dagger and a leather pouch along with its chain shirt. He binds the drow's hands behind him and places the blade of his scimitar in the drow's back.
Walk.
Umgurn returns to common and pushes the drow forward. Malaysia snatches up the disarmed drow's things. Fodinus, Case, and Peace had already removed the similar items from the other 2. Malaysia receives a chain shirt, short sword, hand crossbow, 5 crossbow bolts, a crossbow bolt case, 13 silver pieces, a silver ring, and a dagger. Fodinus receives a short sword, 5 crossbow bolts, and 16 silver pieces. Peace receives a short sword, a hand crossbow, a chain shirt, and 4 gold pieces. Inicel makes a medicine check, rolls 18. Inicel checks the 2 drow on the ground and finds them to be unconscious but still alive. She binds their hands with help from Theophania and gives each of them 1/2 of a healing potion. They awaken, stripped of their belongings and gagged. They are pulled to their feet, and Case and Fodinus guide them behind Umgurn towards the hall. The drow drag their feet and attempt to be difficult, but the blades in their backs keep them moving forward. After an hour of walking, a purplish light illuminates the tunnel ahead. As the party gets closer, the purple light turns into 5 large, floor-to-ceiling glass windows, mostly of a dark purple, almost black shade, with images of the dragon moon in different states of illumination. At the base of the windows are images of creatures of all shapes and sizes that seem to sway in unison, somewhat magically. The middle window does not go all the way to the floor, as it begins at the top of an archway of dark black polished stone. Where the windows do not make up the wall of the temple, the wall alternates between polished black stone and whitish gray stone in a jagged pattern. Sconces on either side of the archway glow bluish purple. As the party approaches, a female drow wearing a long white gown with long silvery hair steps out of the archway and stands patiently just outside the arch. A few feet from the door, Umgurn turns to his drow captive, away from the door, and cuts its bonds and removes its mouth gag. He pushes it forward and says, "Go." Case and Fodinus repeat this action, and the 3 drow move close together, whisper, and then sprint back the way they came.
Greetings, children of the moon. I bade you into this sanctum. We are all at peace here. I am Inelsia Thaneseeker. I preside over this temple. You are all welcome.
She turns towards the archway and points her hand inside, palm up. The party moves inside quickly. Inelsia walks the party through a short hallway of gray tiles inset with dark black polished stone that opens into an enormous vaulted room. The point of the ceiling is at least 150 feet high, and the walls leading from the arch form a circular room of at least 450 feet in diameter. Every 250 feet or so, another arched doorway leads away from the main circular room, a total of 8 doors, including the archway entrance. From this point, the archways all look very similar to the entrance. The wall behind the entranceway has 5 thin panels of dark purple, almost black light, much more narrow than seen from outside. Similarly, the other 7 archways have 5 thin panels of light glowing red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The floor of the hall drops down in tiered levels, all of which have various tents, stalls, and canopies. Humanoid forms of various types can be seen on each platform. At least 5 of such platforms are arranged around the dropping floor. At the center of the room, at the base of the floor, an enormous red crystal shard extends from out of the floor at least 75 feet in the air, about halfway up the floor depression. Around the top platform, there are multiple staircases leading down to the lower tiers. Additional stairwells between all of the other layers are also visible.
Here, you will not need to eat or drink, but your body will be nourished and you will have your thirst quenched. Your mind is already benefiting from the positive psychic energy that emanates from this place. You may choose to visit any of the platforms below or the Mother Crystal. The closer you are to any of them, the more rested, rejuvenated, and reinvigorated you will feel. If you are a master or mistress of the arcane, you will find your contact with it amplified. If you practice the mastery of ki, you will find your ki inexhaustible here. If you are aligned with the natural world, you will feel engulfed in it here. If you seek divine fervor for your guidance, you will be immersed within the glory of your passion. If you speak to your patron for guidance and power, you will be possessed by your patron here. All contact with the world is heightened and accelerated here. You are welcome to stay for as long as you like.
Inelsia bows to the party and turns to walk away.
Inelsia, I seek the guidance of an elder. I also need to commune with the drow. If there is an elder or drow here, could you please assist us?
Umgern bows and Enelsia bows in return with a nod. The party immediately benefits from a long rest. Inside the temple, casting spells or using any ability that has slots does not consume slots, and any spells known can be cast without preparation. An awkward-looking gnome riding a small, stark white donkey clops across the polished floor towards the party. He stops and smiles at the party. He wears bright blue robes tied at the waist with a brown cord and brown sandals. His head has approximately 4 hairs on top, which stick straight up and out of a tarnished, possibly silver crown, which sits on his ears. His skin is very pale and smooth, but occasionally pocked by small blue limpets. As he hops down from the donkey, his robes flutter open, and it's clear to the group he is only wearing the robe. Inicel and Theophania quickly look away. Umgern, Malayge, and Case all drop their heads and look at their shoes. Fodinus and Peace both appear unfazed by the flash of intimacy and smile.
Hello dar. I's Peter. I's things for sale. I's happy to buy things.
He raises his hands with open palms and flexes his fingers, motioning them to come closer and trade. Theophania, with the help of Inicel, removes the hook horror shells and places them on the floor in front of Peter. The party move their heads together for a few moments, whispering among themselves, and then separate and pull their packs off their backs. They begin removing various mundane or unneeded items from their bags and lay them out before Peter, keeping items in their bags that they want to keep or are unsure of. They place the blue dragon wormling skin, 2 blue dragon wormling wings, 5 sturdy spears, 5 heady shields, 5 sets of leather armor, 16 daggers, 8 leather slings, 2 scimitars with animal bone handles, a longsword with steel blade and a corded metal grip, carpenter's tools, woodcarver's tools, smith's tools, 2 sets, tinker's tools, 10 pounds of dragon jerky, 5 pounds of cooked dragon meat, 3 large shiny black eggs, 2 chain shirts, 3 short swords, and 2 hand crossbows on the ground. Peter looks over the items and smiles, a bit of spittle forming in the corner of his mouth.
Yes, yes. All very good. Very good.
Peter removes a 1/2 inch in diameter green emerald from his pocket and holds it up to the light. It is clear and captures the light of the room with glints and flashes.
I's give you this for all of that except them eggs.
Inicel makes a nature check with advantage, rolls 22.
I think that will be very fair, Peter.
She takes the emerald and puts it in her bag, nodding to the others. Peter claps his hands. He opens one of the chests on the back of the donkey and begins placing the items inside. Malayge watches with wonder as the chest seems only about 2 feet by 3 feet, but it never seems to fill. Peter sees him and nods, waving him over.
Why don't you want the eggs, Peter?
Malayge watches the box swallow the items one after the other.
Ah, little guy. Those there are highly valued by this drow down here. I think that one
He points directly at Umgern.
is not so well liked by these drow. Bestie keep these eggs. It will have to get back to the surface.
Peter winks at Malayge. Malayge ponders this information. Malayge makes an intelligence check, rolls 8. Malayge grimaces a bit, not quite sure what Peter means, but places the eggs back in his bag and nods to Umgern.
How does this box work?
Malayge turns his attention back to the items vanishing into the box.
This here? Tis a special box. I has a special friend who did make it just for Peter. That and there, that's another dimension. Tis like a big room. Eyes can even go inside.
What friend?
Malayge moves closer and watches the items slide inside.
Aurelia.
Peter smiles and then frowns and then ignores Malayge and places the last of the items inside. Malayge makes an insight check, rolls 8. Malayge shrugs his shoulders and smiles at Peter. Peter quickly remounts the donkey and moves on from the party, disappearing in the distance. Malayge moves over to Inicel.
Hey, Inicel, what did he trade us for all of our junk?
An emerald, Malayge. I am sure it is worth at least 1,000 gold pieces. My estimate of the stuff we sold him was around 800 gold pieces or less. I think we are better off and certainly lighter.
Malayge nods. The party separates and wanders around the hall, moving to various platforms and investigating the spheres and crystals. Inacel walks with Peace and Theophania around the top of the platform, looking down into the various tiers, structures, and people below. She sees a large tree that appears to grow from the stone floor, nods to her colleagues, and ventures down to the lower platform. There are several people standing near or touching the tree. The eldest of them smiles at Inacel and walks over to her.
Hello, I am Ghana, and that is Nori.
A male elf druid points to a female elf druid touching the tree, who looks over and smiles.
We are from Village Hefni, far to the north, and have traveled to this temple through the Feywild on a pilgrimage.
He bows low with his hands behind his back, as does Nori. Inacel bows in the form of her people and smiles.
I am Inacel Zelani of the great swamp of Pathelia, daughter of Noash and Ilthir Zelani, druid of the Circle of the Moon. My friends and I are visiting this temple to regain our bearings and renew our magic.
Inacel makes a deception check versus Ghana's insight check. Rolls 18 versus 12.
Ah, I see. We are druids of the Circle of Dreams and hail from the court of the Highland Lakes. Nori is my sister. Why have you lost your bearings, and what has separated you from your magic?
He smiles curiously.
Our colleague, a drow, was leading us through the Underdark on a bit of a tour. He knows the place very well, and we unfortunately ran into a nest of hook horrors. It shook us a bit.
Hook horrors! I can imagine. That sounds dreadful. If only a temple such as this existed everywhere. But it is the only one of its kind in all of Angedrian.
Ghana claps his hands together lightly.
How long will you stay?
Inacel looks at the other druids near the tree, who seem in a disturbed trance.
Stay? If possible, we will never leave. Some days I feel like I have just arrived, as I am so excited with what I see. Other days I miss my home terribly. Just the other day I thought about how delicious my favorite fruit is from home, and I was suddenly so hungry I thought I would die.
He looks happy but vacant and walks towards the tree. Inacel moves over to the tree as well and places her hands on it. Inacel makes a wisdom saving throw, DC 12, rolls 8. As the vibrations of the tree flow through her claws and arms, fill her chest, engulf her mind, and cascade down her legs, Inacel feels the most intense connection to nature she has ever felt. In the chamber of the temple, there are many living things, and she can feel each of them and feels connected to them directly. She closes her eyes and sees the vast network of living things in shades of green and blue all around her, and the inorganic stone and rock appears as a light gray scaffolding upon which life is living. Outside of the temple, throughout the Underdark, she sees a variety of creatures and knows them as if they were herself. Far above her, there is a canopy of green and blue, of life filling the sky of her mind, the surface of Angedrian. I could stay here forever, she thinks. She focuses on the living things around her most closely and looks with her mind at the way they had come. Inacel makes a perception check, DC 15, rolls 22. Where the Underdark is cut by the intruding tunnel, the rock looks diseased and the gray is replaced by deep poisonous red. She can see the remains of the device crushed. The tunnel of red moves back through the Underdark as they saw on Case's maps, back towards Wood's Head, and then it turns south. It approaches the mountains, traveling in a straight line, and then it turns upward and the red scar vanishes. Inacel concentrates intensely and tries to push her vision as far as she can. Inacel makes a wisdom check, DC 15, rolls 19. Inacel sees the scar's end. She sees the high mountain pass and the frozen forest below. She removes her hands from the tree. The knowledge and the connection were powerful and helpful, but she cannot stay here. This place is a blessing and a curse. She moves away from the tree to a small side table where reagents and vials of alchemy and herbalism are abundant. There is a shelf of glass flasks and vials that refills itself whenever she takes one. As she studies the table and its ingredients available, it is clear that she can make better potions of healing than she currently has. She begins quietly making healing potions and focusing on that image of the scar's end. Inacel makes 10 potions of greater healing at no cost. Fodinus walks the perimeter of the Great Hall, near all of the archways. From this distance, he cannot see down into the tiered platforms, but the tip of the red crystal juts just above, providing a flood of light all the way to each archway. With the exception of the colored sets of panels above them, all of the archways look the same, constructed of the same material. Within each one, however, the floor of the archway leading out has a scene made of mosaic tiles that creates an image. When he entered the primary archway, the scene was the same as the windows outside, moon dancers. In the red panels, the floor has a mosaic that shows 5 scenes swirling around a central maelstrom and connected by lines of blue, green, red, black, and white. The orange panels show 10 spheres of 2 colors, each interlocked in a network of bridges, roads, skyways, and paths, all surrounded by clouds. The yellow panels have a mosaic floor that shows a cluster of spellcasters of different races and powers manifesting spells all around them. The green panels have a mosaic floor showing forests, mountains, oceans, and plains in various states of flux, swirling around a central pool of voided waste. The blue panels have an archway floor of a dark graveyard around the outside with an enormously bright moon in the middle. The indigo panels are over an archway with a mosaic of elves, fairies, unicorns, and other beasts running through a vast open field with mountains all around. The violet plane looks like a bleak and dreary plane of blackness and nothingness with horrifying creatures looming in deep shadows. After he completes his circuit, Vodinus moves over to the edge of the platform and peers down across the smaller platforms. He is just about to give up on something interesting when a glint and sparkle catches his eye. He squints and then smiles. A few minutes later, he has made his way to the platform and sees at least a dozen different gambling games in progress. He sees various games using playing cards, a large table using dice, and a flat table with a large spinning wheel. He goes immediately to the closest table and watches the game. Vodinus makes an intelligence check, rolls 15. The dealer who controls the game gives each player 2 cards face up and gives herself 1 card down and 1 card up. Each player then has a chance to ask for more cards. The goal seems to be a total of 21 points without going over. There are some sort of side bets possible. If the dealer goes over 21, everyone seems to win. He considers the goal and the dealer's odds and decides that this game highly favors the dealer. He moves to another table. On this one, there is a large wheel spinning at one end. Vodinus makes a perception check, rolls 7. The players around the table seem to be randomly placing chips onto the numbers on a field of numbers that match the numbers on the wheel. After all bets are placed, a small white ball bounces around the wheel and lands in a small pocket that correlates with the number. Half the players scream with excitement and the other half seem to be angry. Vodinus thinks the field of play is a confusing mess. He doesn't feel comfortable with this new game. He moves to a large table using dice, which he has played many ways, and observes. Vodinus makes a wisdom check, rolls 3. Vodinus watches the 6 people saying various bets and throwing chips of various colors to several game masters who place the chips on a series of numbers, words, and spaces. One of the players rolls the dice, and again several people cheer and some people seem unhappy. The game master throws chips randomly to players. Vodinus is very uncomfortable with this game as it is nothing like the dice games he is used to. He moves to another table with a game of cards and observers.
Vodinus makes an intelligence check, rolls 6.
In this game, players are given 2 cards face down, and then the dealer reveals multiple cards in the middle of the table. Each time a card is revealed, the players throw in more chips. Because he cannot see their cards, the strategy for betting confuses Vodinus. When the players finally flip over their cards, some of them have hands of 5 cards that are superior, but others have nothing. Vodinus is confused and walks away from the table. As he moves towards another table, a small drow wearing a brightly colored robe with playing cards and dice embroidered all over it approaches Vodinus.
What is your game, sir?
The drow is jovial and kind, smiling and standing with his palms open and face up.
I will play any game I know how to, but these games are foreign to me.
Vodinus sighs and looks away.
Oh, that won't do, sir. Please let me show you.
The drow takes Vodinus by the hand and pulls him back to the first table. While Vodinus watches, the drow explains the entire game in Vodinus' head without speaking. The explanation flies through Vodinus' brain, and within a few hands he has a complete understanding of the game. The drow immediately drags him to each subsequent table and explains the game in Fodinus' head. After less than 10 minutes, Fodinus understands all 4 games well and decides he will try the last one because the first 3 do not rely on the player's ability to be deceitful or bluff, which is part of his talent. He takes a seat at the table. The other 3 players smile at him and say hello in their names, Cadwell, Jessup, and Argonon. He throws 50 gold pieces on the table, and the dealer hands him a stack of multicolored chips that include 5 white, 4 red, and 1 green. Fodinus notices that the other players have many of each color, plus some blue chips. The dealer deals the 2 cards to all 4 players, and Fodinus is the second player, sitting between Cadwell on his left and Jessup on his right. Fodinus receives 2 random cards, a 6 of diamonds and the 4 of spades. Cadwell already has 3 white chips in front of them. Jessup has 1 red chip and 1 white chip in front of them. Argonon has no chips, and the dealer nods to them. Argonon puts 1 red chip and 1 white chip in. Fodinus follows suit and bets 1 red chip and 1 white chip. Cadwell puts in 3 more white chips. The dealer deals out 3 more cards onto the top of the table, face up. The dealer reveals the 6 of spades, the 9 of spades, and the ace of spades. Fodinus makes a deception check with advantage, brooch of the gambler. Other players make insight checks. Roll 18 versus 15, 15, and 12.
Check.
Cadwell does not seem to want to bet. Fodinus throws 2 red chips onto the pile. The other players immediately fold their cards. Fodinus receives 5 red chips and 10 white chips from the pile. He has 14 white chips, 6 red chips, and 1 green chip. Fodinus continues playing the game with the bet lead moving around the table and the minimum bet increasing every 4 rounds of play. Fodinus makes 10 deception checks with advantage, brooch of the gambler, versus 10 collective insight checks. Rolls 13, 21, 19, 21, 20, 7, 19, 23, 23, and 11 versus 20, 19, 9, 20, 5, 3, 3, 17, 4, and 10. 9 consecutive successes. Though he lost the second hand with a bit of a fumble of his cards, he then wins the next 9 games in a row. As Cadwell, the last player with any money, goes all in, Fodinus turns over his 2 cards, revealing 4 aces, and takes the pot. Fodinus receives 65 white chips, 28 red chips, 13 green chips, and 3 blue chips.
Whoa, that was fun. I think I'll try another table.
Fodinus pushes all of the chips to the dealer, who exchanges them for 1 red, 1 green, 3 blue, and 1 black. Fodinus slides back from the table and moves over to the drow, who stands behind a small podium.
Well, how did you do, sir?
He takes the chips from Fodinus.
Quite well, I think.
Fodinus smiles. The drow counts out 83 coins and pours them into a small cotton sack embroidered with a large N on the side.
Here you go, sir, and congratulations.
The drow smiles again. Fodinus looks back at the other tables, throws the small bag up in the air, and catches it. Fodinus makes an intelligence saving throw, rolls 22, natural 20. Fodinus is very satisfied with the clink of the coins. He nods to the drow and leaves the platform. Fodinus receives 83 platinum pieces. Thank you for visiting Engedrian. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for additional content, battle maps, and background details. We hope you're enjoying our adventure. We can't wait to hear what happens next.